The transport shuttle rattled so hard on the descent toward Hellion 6 that I began to suspect the pilot had bribed the laws of physics rather than followed them. The cabin lights flickered, the floor hummed, and the overhead speaker kept repeating, "Turbulence level, moderate," which was obviously a lie. Beside me, a crate labeled bioluminescent vegetables. Do not kick slid back and forth like it was trying to escape. I tried to look calm. New recruit, new outpost, new life. I'd imagined a quiet posting where my biggest challenge would be logging supply numbers and trying not to fall asleep during meetings. I had not expected the shuttle to threaten spontaneous disassembly before breakfast. When the doors finally hissed open, I stepped into a docking bay full of strange scents. Ozone, mineral dust, and something that reminded me suspiciously of burnt toast. A six-eyed clerk in an orange uniform greeted me with the enthusiasm of a malfunctioning robot. He looked me up and down, handed me a thin silver robe and said, "You'll need this for your ritual. Try not to scream. It annoys the queen." Then he wandered off to shout at a cargo hauler. I stood there, holding the robe, wondering whether I'd accidentally joined a cult instead of the Interstellar Civic Corps. "Ritual," I called after him. He didn't turn. A passing engineer patted my shoulder and whispered, "If she doesn't like you, she'll vibrate your skull. Good luck," before hurrying away. Not helpful. I followed the guide drone that zipped ahead like an impatient firefly. It led me through long corridors studded with floating lanterns and transparent walls showing the pale shimmer of the desert planet outside. Hellion 6 looked peaceful enough. Quiet dunes, lavender sky, 2 moons drifting lazily, but I was beginning to suspect the outpost was run by beings who found amusement in terrifying newcomers. When we reached the crystalline doors of the throne chamber, I felt my palms sweat. The drone chimed, "Please enter. Mind your head. The lanterns are sensitive." Of course, I hit one immediately. It bobbed angrily, flashing red, and I muttered an apology to a piece of floating glass. The doors slid open with a hum. Inside, the air felt warmer, filled with a faint metallic scent. And there she was, Queen Leora. Taller than me, graceful and almost human, except for the long, elegant ears that curved like polished silver and caught the light with a soft shimmer. Her skin had a faint iridescence, as though starlight clung to her. She regarded me with a calm interest, not the bone-vibrating fury the rumors promised. "So," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, "the outpost sends me a nervous one." "I'm not nervous," I lied, then immediately tripped on the hem of the ceremonial robe while trying to bow. I recovered with something that might generously be called dignity, just adjusting to the altitude, gravity, culture, all of it. Her mouth curved into a smile. "Relax. I do not bite humans. The ritual requires your presence, not your panic." Well, that's a relief. Panic tends to make me do tricks. My last supervisor banned me from holding anything fragile after I dropped a whole tray of. "I can imagine," she said, amused. The chamber itself was breathtaking. A network of crystalline pillars, each glowing faintly from within, forming patterns that reminded me of star maps. Leora sat on a throne shaped from a single curved shard, elegant and otherworldly. Floating data glyphs drifted behind her, rearranging themselves in slow, deliberate spirals. "So what exactly is this ritual?" I asked, because apparently I had to drag information out of people here like a bad dentist. "It is simple," she replied. "A test of trust. You spend a night in my presence. We speak. We observe. We see whether your spirit trembles or stands. That's it? Just talk? You know, I was expecting swirling portals and cosmic chanting. You would prefer chanting? Absolutely not." Her laugh chimed like distant bells, warm and unexpectedly gentle. "You interest me already." I glanced around the chamber, trying to look composed while calculating whether my heart rate was normal or approaching hummingbird levels. "So if I pass, then what?" "Then you serve here with my approval. If you fail—" She paused, tilting her head in consideration. "Well, nothing dramatic. You simply transfer to the hydroponics wing. They always need volunteers to wash algae vats. I swallowed. I will pass. Good. She rose from the throne with slow, fluid grace. Her long ears shifted subtly, angling toward me, as though sensing my pulse. Come. The night awaits. As she stepped closer, I caught a faint scent like cool rain on metal. She studied me, eyes bright, curious. Relax, she murmured. You are not prey. Good to know, I said, though I'd like that in writing. She let out another soft laugh, and for a moment the tension around us thinned, replaced by something almost warm. Then she gestured to a translucent corridor that shimmered like captured moonlight. Whatever this ritual required, it was beginning now, and I wasn't sure whether to be terrified or strangely honored to be walking beside the most feared, most fascinating ruler on the outpost. The corridor stretched ahead like a ribbon of moonlight, its walls made of some semi-transparent material that shimmered with every step. A soft hum pulsed through it, as if the entire passage were breathing. I tried not to stare at Queen Leora while we walked side by side, but subtle curiosity kept tugging at my gaze. Her long ears shifted with every sound. Footsteps, air currents, maybe even my heartbeat, like organic antennae tuned to a frequency far above my pay grade. You are unusually quiet, she said, glancing at me with amusement. I'm trying not to say anything embarrassing, I replied. It hasn't been going well today. You may relax. I am accustomed to humans making awkward statements in my presence. That doesn't make me feel better. Not intended to, she said, lips curving slightly. The corridor opened into a vast sanctum. A glowing garden suspended inside a dome sphere. Bioluminescent vines draped from the ceiling, dripping faint blue light, and clusters of floating seeds drifted lazily like tiny suns. The ground looked soft, almost liquid, but when I stepped on it, it firmed beneath my boots as though politely agreeing to be solid for now. This, Leora said, her hand sweeping gracefully through the air, is where we will spend the night. The sanctum responds to our presence. Do not be alarmed if it glows or vibrates. It enjoys company. Vibrates? Why? It is excitable, she replied. That's comforting. It should not be. It once swallowed an ambassador from Kylos. I stopped. Swallowed. He had a reputation for arrogance. The sanctum was merely expressing an opinion. I decided then and there to be the most humble human in the galaxy. We settled near a cluster of luminescent stones that radiated gentle warmth. Leora lowered herself with elegant ease, while I tried to sit without looking like a malfunctioning puppet. The moment I crossed my legs, one of the floating seeds drifted into my face and bounced off my forehead with a soft plink. Leora's ears twitched, and I had the distinct suspicion she was suppressing a laugh. So, I said, clearing my throat, staying awake all night should be easy. I've worked maintenance shifts longer than. You will likely fall asleep, she interrupted. Humans usually do. They grow anxious, then weary. Well, I've had 3 coffees today. I can smell them. Is that a bad thing? It is sharp. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment as the garden lights pulsed gently around us like a slow heartbeat. I noticed her expression soften as she looked upward at the glowing canopy. You don't like this ritual, do you? I asked quietly, her ears lowered slightly. It is necessary, but it is tiring to be feared before I speak even a word. Many people tremble in my presence. Well, I tripped into a lantern earlier, so I think I broke tradition. A soft laugh escaped her, melodic and light. You are different from the others. Because I'm clumsy? Because you do not try to hide it. The warmth in her tone startled me. She looked less like a distant monarch now and more like someone weary of being alone inside her own legend. For a moment, her regal composure eased, revealing something gentler. Before I could respond, 2 robotic guards rolled into the sanctum, their glossy shells flashing orange. Queen Leora, one announced, voice harsh and metallic. You have 4 unread diplomatic messages. Response required. Leora closed her eyes briefly. Tell them I am in ritual. The diplomats are insisting. Tell them, she said with regal irritation, to insist quieter. The robots processed this for a long second, then slowly reversed out of the chamber as if reconsidering their life choices. Couldn't help but laugh. Do they interrupt you often? All the time. I sometimes question whether they serve me or torment me. Well, if they start chanting, we run, I said. She smiled again, more openly this time. As the twin moons rose outside the dome, painting the sanctum in shifting silver light, our conversation deepened. We talked about her burdens, my misadventures, the Outpost's reputation for malfunctioning air purifiers, and the time I accidentally glued my hand to a console during training. She listened with surprising interest, ears tilting to catch every detail. The night felt less like a ritual and more like two people trying to understand each other in a strange, glowing garden that occasionally hummed in approval. And somewhere between her laughter and the soft pulse of the sanctum, the fear I'd arrived with began to loosen, making room for something unexpected, something quietly warm, almost hopeful, rising like a small star inside the vastness of Helion-6b. By the time the twin moons had dipped below the horizon, the sanctum was bathed in a gentle amber glow. The bioluminescent vines had dimmed to a soft pulse, and the floating seeds hovered silently, as if exhausted from their nocturnal vigil. I realized that I'd spent hours in conversation with Queen Leora, yet the tension that had clawed at my chest since stepping onto Helen 6 had mostly melted away. Somewhere between her delicate, arching ears twitching with curiosity and the ridiculousness of nearly stepping on a sentient glowing stone, I had stopped being terrified and started thinking, observing, listening, engaging. I had not anticipated that a night spent in the company of a being both regal and so startlingly human could teach me more about myself than months of training ever could. You have survived, Leora said softly, the words floating above the subdued hum of the sanctum. Her eyes glimmered, not with judgment, but with something more nuanced. Interest, perhaps, or relief. Most humans falter before midnight. Most humans speak only in pleasantries or panic. You managed neither. I can't tell if that's a compliment or a warning, I said, though I felt a grin tugging at my face. Also, I think I owe that to the garden for not trying to swallow me. Her soft laugh chimed again. You have a strange sense of humor. Necessary for survival, I said. And maybe for sanity. For a long moment, silence stretched between us, comfortable and tentative, like the space between stars waiting to be filled. Then she spoke again, more quietly. The purpose of this ritual was not merely to observe fear or obedience. It was to see whether you could remain yourself while in my presence. Most cannot. They either become shadows or show only bravado. You did neither. You were honest. Clumsy, stubbornly honest. That is rare. I shifted, trying to appear nonchalant while my chest swelled with an odd mix of pride and disbelief. So, that means I passed? By every measure that matters, she replied, her long ears lowering slightly, a gesture I was beginning to understand as genuine approval. The outpost will be safer with someone like you here, not for your strength or skill, though you have them, but for your integrity. That is more powerful than any weapon I command. I nodded, thinking about the months I had spent imagining this posting would be monotonous, about the dull, routine tasks I had expected. Instead, I had faced something entirely unpredictable. A test not of muscle or courage, but of character. I realized I had grown in ways I hadn't recognized. My confidence had steadied, my judgments had sharpened, and my capacity to connect, even across species and centuries of cultural divides, had expanded. Then, without warning, the sanctum trembled, subtle at first, then a shudder that rattled the glowing vines. The outpost's reactor had thrown a minor surge, a quirk I would later learn was common during early morning power cycles. I sprang into action instinctively, racing to the nearby control panel, while Leora raised her hands, singing in a resonance that made the air itself thrum. The energy grid stabilized under our combined efforts, my human improvisation and her alien resonance. A perfect, unspoken coordination that left us both breathing a little more heavily than necessary. The absurdity of the moment hit me, and I couldn't help muttering, "We make a great team. Though next time, maybe fewer near meltdowns." Her ears twitched upward in amusement. "Indeed, you might survive the outpost after all." We stood in the aftermath, the emergency lights fading, the sanctum returning to its gentle glow. She regarded me with an intensity that no longer frightened me. Instead, I felt a quiet respect, a recognition that something delicate but resilient had formed between us. The night had tested us both, my courage, her openness, and we had passed not just the ritual, but the silent, more perilous test of trust. "I suppose," I said, finally daring a light joke, "that means I'm officially not allowed to fall asleep during board meetings either?" "You may do as you wish," she said, "though I expect your honesty will persist." We laughed, a sound that seemed too human for the alien chamber but entirely fitting. As the first pale light of Helansex's sun touched the domed ceiling, I felt the weight of the night settle comfortably across my shoulders. I had arrived expecting an outpost, routine, and maybe a little tedium. Instead, I had discovered a night of challenges, absurdities, unexpected companionship, and lessons I would carry for a lifetime. In the presence of the alien queen, I had learned not only about her, but about the parts of myself that were capable of trust, courage, and quiet humor in the face of the unknown. And that, perhaps, was the most important ritual of all.